Dashing and daring, courageous and scary, Jayain is moody with anger to spare. If you're a blonde and you tell him to stop it, he will just keep pumping and screw you bare. Super J, when he is deep inside you, he will spray. And he won't stop till his ball's empty. His name is Super J. If you reject him, then he stays erected. Then he'll find another blonde chick to screw. His dick is growing. He takes pride in knowing that he gives it nicely when he's inside you. Super J, when he finishes, you go away. And you better never call again. His name is Super J. Dun, dun, dun.
Love it, bro. You cease to amaze me with the lyrics you can write for these songs. So you're wonderful at writing songs, wonderful at transforming original songs into new songs.
Yeah, in 10 minutes, by the way, in record time.
Yep, I can say that he did that in 10 minutes. Yep.
All right, well, welcome to Talk Dragon Ball. The voice that you're hearing right now, as of this moment, is Big D from Geekdom 101, and joining me, of course, Super Jayain. Go subscribe to Jay. Everybody, let's help Jay get to 10,000 subscribers as soon as possible. I want Jay to hit 10,000 before the end of the month, so let's see if we can get him up there. I mean, hell, by the time this video comes out, you might already be at 10,000, and if you are, then maybe let's get him to 20,000.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I at least upload 2 videos a week, so I do try very hard and love interacting with the community.
Jay is very knowledgeable, and he also works a full-time job, and he's got a managerial position. Therefore, he has to take sometimes extra hours, so that's sometimes why he can't upload every single day. Not everybody can, upload 2 or 3 times a day like Rhymestyle can. Sometimes, when you get called into work for extra hours, like that takes priority,
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, unfortunately, YouTube doesn't pay the bills quite like my regular job does, so my regular job takes precedence over YouTube, unfortunately. Which I wish it was the other way around. I do wish it was the other way around.
And anybody out there who's had a managerial position, you know what the pain and the struggle is of that. So, on this Talk Dragon Ball podcast, because that's pretty much what it is, except it's on YouTube. Maybe one day I'll put it on iTunes, but probably not. We're going to talk about the Dragon Ball community, all of us. We're going to talk about the topic is, are we as Dragon Ball fans, how can I really phrase this? Are we too critical as fans? And there's 2 different points of view with this, because I feel like we have a right to be critical, because everybody on Earth has a right to their opinion, no matter how smart or stupid it may be. But I do feel sometimes, Jay, that some of the Dragon Ball fans, and I've been guilty of this myself, and so have you. You've actually done it a lot recently. I'm not going to lie about that. Sometimes you guys jump to conclusions, and sometimes we jump. Like, for example, when we're watching Super Live, sometimes we'll get angry at something, and then when we watch it the second time with the subs, or, second or third time, it kind of becomes more of a chill thing. So, I mean, what do you think on this? Do you think that the Dragon Ball community is too critical of the series, or not critical enough?
I mean, it's really hard to say. With the animation is one thing, and I really don't want to talk about that, because to be perfectly clear, there's something I'm understanding as I watch the series more and more. There's one thing I will get straight with everyone. For me, and for a lot of people, Denny included, this is the first time watching a Dragon Ball series when it's actually airing. I don't know if you actually watched GT back in the day when it was airing, or you
mean in Japan?
Yeah, this is the first time we are watching a series, a Dragon Ball series, as it's hitting television the same day it's hitting television in our lounge rooms or in our computer rooms, or in our bedrooms. We are watching Dragon Ball at the exact same time Japan is, and that you kind of have to stop and think about that for a second. So for me, when I am watching the series, yes, sometimes I am a little bit overcritical of watching it for the first time. But you got to understand, this is the first time I'm ever seeing something, so it takes time to process these things you're seeing. Like, maybe when you watch it 2 or 3 times again after with the subs, you start to realize, oh, wait a minute, like with subtitles, I've got an explanation, or, this scene isn't that bad because they kind of flesh it out a little bit in the next episode. And I mean, I've jumped the gun a few times, and I have been very critical of Super at times. But if someone gave me the choice between having no new content or Dragon Ball Super, I'm sure as heck going to pick Dragon Ball Super, because yeah, it's not perfect, and it could be executed a hell of a lot better than it has been so far in the last, 8 months, 8 months or so, roughly 8 months. It just it's still enjoyable, and I still get a buzz out of sitting there every Sunday. For me, it's Sunday morning at 10 o'clock and watching Dragon Ball live with Japan. Like I'm not watching it really with Japanese people, but I'm watching it live at the same time that the Japanese audience is, and that's really cool. And I try to remember that whilst I'm watching Dragon Ball Super.
Well, 90% of the fan base, I would say, that speaks English or even speaks Spanish. I mean, really, other than the people who actually are old enough to have been alive and been around in 84 when Dragon Ball first aired, which is probably not a huge number. I would probably say 99.9% of our audience here on YouTube probably did not watch it live, especially with the fact that you had to have been in Japan because the internet was not a thing back in 84
Yeah,
or even in 95. You couldn't stream shit in 95. Streaming didn't really start like heavily. You could stream like in 2001. I remember you could watch stuff that aired in Japan right after. Like I remember I was really into Super Sentai then, Power Rangers, and I would watch the new episodes of Hurricaneger right after they aired, like usually about 3-4 hours afterward, unsubbed. And that's so we started to progress technology. Now with the way technology is, yeah, like you said, we're watching it live. We are watching it at the maybe we have like a 2 minute delay, right? Obviously, but still. It's still pretty damn live. Now, I wanted to ask you this question and kind of discuss this one because the whole thing about being too critical, I also feel like sometimes we're not critical enough because one of the things that there's two different stances to this, and that's why I think it's important to find a balance when it comes to talking about Dragon Ball because people like will sometimes give the show too many breaks, and we often hear from a lot of people, you, me, Xeon, BLACKENFIST, the whole group of us, we always get commenters saying, well, it's Dragon Ball, just enjoy Dragon Ball, when we're even the least bit critical. And the thing that bugs me personally is when people like tell me just enjoy the show, just ignore the plot holes. No, that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to watch the show and enjoy it. But if something sticks out at me that it's going to take away from my enjoyment, I'm not going to sit here and bullshit the freaking subscribers and bullshit my audience and tell them everything's hunky-dory. That's not what I do. There are other anime channels out there, which I'm not going to name, that always act like fanboys, always say everything's great and everything's not great. There's been bad animation. There's been things in Super that have not been thoroughly explained. There's some things that aren't explained that I can give them a pass for. There are other things that I feel need to be explained because of the importance of certain things. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
like for example, the timeline of Dragon Ball Super, the lack of bra being there, those things need to be explained, and lazy writing needs to be criticized to me. I think it needs to be criticized. At the same time, I think that there are certain things about the series that should not be criticized, and case in point, the fanboyism. I'm kind of sick and tired of fans in this community getting mad at Dragon Ball Super because their favorite character's not getting the spotlight. Well, Gohan's not the main guy, so I'm pissed off. Oh, well, Vegeta didn't kill Frieza, so I'm pissed off. That one you can kind of make an argument for because the story, the beef is Vegeta and Frieza. We can all agree to that one. That's been the beef for 50 years or however long it's been.
Yeah.
But right? But like if you're gonna sit there and criticize Super because Majin Buu and Krillin aren't like major players, I mean, okay, you can be upset about that as a fanboy, but that's not the story that's being told. Super is about Goku and Vegeta. And I feel like people just, they'll sit there and they'll criticize Super, and some of the criticisms come from a place that I could never return to, and that is the ignorant fanboy universe. That's what I'm calling it right now, the ignorant fanboy universe, which a lot of dubbies tend to crawl into, which is, why is Broly not in Super? Why is Bardock not in Super? When if you actually sit back and use your brain and use a little bit of critical thinking, which is severely lacking in this community, not from my subscribers, but from people who I see on Facebook, especially on Facebook, it's really bad there. And Reddit, I don't even want to get on Reddit. They sit there and they wonder why Broly's not coming back. Well, if you actually study the series, study the franchise, you'll know why Broly's not coming back. You'll know why Broly was never a factor to begin with, except for in your own mind. Broly is just a movie villain. No different than Garlic Jr., who did come back for an arc. No different than Turles. No different than any of these freaking guys. He's just a movie villain. He's not in any single way impactful to the series. And to me, Jay, I'm sorry I'm ranting here, bro.
That's all right.
It's just, you know, it's one thing I think, to overly nitpick every single flaw in Super, but at the same time, I do feel like some of us do give Super too much slack. You know, I know I hear both you and I saying, well, let's wait and see if they explain it. Let's wait and see if they explain it. And really, they're batting about a 50% average, bro, because sometimes when I say, let's wait for them to explain it, or you say it, they will explain it. And then other times they don't explain shit. You know, and it's like, then we're kind of like, well, we should have waited, we shouldn't have waited. I don't know. It's like I don't even know where to take it, you know?
Yeah, and the Garlic Jr. thing as well is kind of like, yes, he was a movie villain that came into the series, but we got to understand as well, they had a very good explanation for that. He tied into the history of Kami, or the Nameless Namekian, and the fight for the throne of God of Earth. So that there was a good history written there between the two of them. He fits into the universe rather well.
He's a much better written character than Broly, in my opinion.
Exactly, yeah, much better. And I think the Dead Zone, like Return My Gohan, that's a far better movie than the Broly movies. But yeah, I mean, there are things we need to be critical of, and I do think, yes, the animation is one of them, but I try not to harp on it too much, because I'm starting to understand just how rushed this series is.
Yeah, it's very rushed, yes.
It's not something we can control, unfortunately, but one thing we can do is, give a bit of a voice and just say, we're not okay with this, or we'd like them to explain this. And something I personally, if I was going to criticize something, because they really need to elaborate a little bit more on the God Ki, rather than just Goku and Vegeta being told if they don't let their Ki flow outside their body, they have God Ki. Well, that's basically the only hint they've given us. I'm not saying that's what it is, but that's only a hint they've given us. And now Goku's using his golden haired form at this time, so it's just, it's very confusing, and the series is going too fast. I almost feel like sometimes
it's very rushed. Yes,
they heard, Battle of Gods is boring, and then they sped the Resurrection of F arc up, and they've just kept that pace going ever since the end of the Resurrection of the Battle of Gods arc. It's been very, very fast paced, and I'm okay with having 14 episode arcs, to be perfectly fair. Like, I can't say that I'm against a 14 episode arc, but one thing I will say is, with that 14 episodes that you have, you really need to make the most of it, and you really need to have entire portions of episodes dedicated to certain things. Like, you need to have scenes where things are explained properly. If you have to use half an episode to explain something, then do it. It doesn't matter, because the audience has the answer, and it's lore building. You are adding to the lore of the Dragon Ball universe. Really, what they're doing at the moment is giving us new content, which is fantastic, but they're also giving us new content without a lot of explanation. So we're making and filling in our own lore and our own plot, and that's really not what you want to happen in your community as a fan of Dragon Ball, because it just kind of... And it's perfectly evident this week with the whole... At the time this video is being recorded, everyone's arguing over how Frost beat Goku, and I mean, it's just getting old really quickly.
And yeah, by the time this video goes up, everybody will already know.
Everyone will know. But it's just little things like that. Like, we're not going to know until next week. That's fine. I'm not going to pick on that. But, why is Goku using his regular Super Saiyan form? Why can't they explain that? Why can't Goku goes, I don't need why couldn't Goku say something like, I've got a form stronger than this, but I don't need to use that to fight you? Like, it just takes one line. So I feel like where Super falls short is just the little things. I feel like for the most part, Super's okay, but it falls short. And I know a lot of people will argue this.
Well, I mean, here's the thing.
A lot of missed opportunities. It is a lot of missed opportunities, but I feel like if they tweak one or two things in each episode, the series would be fantastic.
I agree. And the other thing, too, I feel is, and that goes back to our point about the criticism, is that's what you just said, I think, is a fair criticism of Dragon Ball Super and of Dragon Ball as a whole. One of the things that we can certainly criticize, that I feel the entire community, the one thing that I think every single fan of Dragon Ball, and I mean everybody, I'm talking about from the Rhyme Styles to the Mike Labrise to you to me to Xeon to everybody on Facebook subscribing, every single person who loves Dragon Ball, the one thing we will all 100% agree on is, why the hell is this thing not being simulcast? That's the one thing. That's a criticism to me. That's the most important one, is why Toei is so behind the times. I did my interview with Hujio. We talked a little bit about it on air, a little bit more off air, which I'm not going to reveal what was talked about. But essentially, it cements everything I was saying, and I've been saying, and I've been researching about Toei is ran by a bunch of guys who are behind the times. Because if they were, ahead of the curve, or if they were in tune with technology, they would know, and in tune with the popularity of Dragon Ball, they would have this thing simulcasted all over the world, not just in
Yeah, and
America.
they would be making money off that, and you can guarantee if they even if they simulcast, and I'm sorry to cut you off, even if they simulcast the Japanese dub, people are going to watch it. People will pay subscriptions for streaming services, Hulu, Netflix, to watch Dragon Ball Super in
Or
Japanese.
even
They will pay.
Funimation.com, even
Yep,
Funimation.com.
Funimation.com. And then when they release the home release in the United States and Australia or United Kingdom, people will buy that to see the English dub. They will make money both ways.
I mean, Sabbath is dying to get his hands on it too because he wants to do the dub, and the Dragon Ball dub. I guess the Funimation cast is significantly better now than they were back in the '90s. That's a fact, and if you don't agree, you have issues because nobody can be. Even if you think Nadoldi's better than Colleen, that's not even the argument here. You can't do a job for 10 years and get worse at it. It's just not humanly possible unless you have real problems, right? So Chris Sabat in 2016 has to be better than Chris Sabat in 1999. It's just not possible. That goes for if you flip burgers or if you're a freaking engineer. You just don't get worse at your job. So I do want the dub. I don't know, like, how I want it to air, if they're going to skip the first two arcs. I don't know about that. But the point is this. Toei should be on the ball with this. That's a fair criticism. Now, an unfair criticism is people who jump to the conclusions of bad writing or this and that without even giving it a chance. Now, again, we were batting 50 on this, but we'll use the Goku Frost example. People are saying that Goku, and a lot of this has to do with, I don't want to sound like a know-it-all because I hate coming off like a know-it-all because even though I make jokes about it, I really don't know everything. I swear to God, I don't know even remotely what, like, Herms and talk about Dragon Ball, like Herms and K17 and even ZZ Toasty when it comes to video games. Like, I really don't. I do not. But one thing that I do have a grasp on that I think a lot of fans need to grasp is an understanding of what Dragon Ball actually is and an understanding of Goku's character. Because people were saying that, and it really got under my skin, they were saying that Goku threw the fight. Well, if you watched Dragon Ball and you understood Dragon Ball and you understood Goku, and some of this is the dub's fault, some of it is the person's fault for not expanding their horizons beyond the dub. Because if the dub got you into Dragon Ball, the original Z dub, God bless you. That's what got all of us into Dragon Ball. Because before I was collecting tapes, I did watch the dub Sunday mornings at 6 a.m. on syndication. Most of us did. Everybody on Kanzenshu discovered it on the dub, so it's like, there's nothing wrong with discovering the dub, but if you're a Dragon Ball fan, you have to expand your horizons. And I'm not saying to watch it in Japanese necessarily, even though you need to do that. Read the manga, read up on Toriyama's mentality, read up on, and if you don't care, like if you're a casual fan, I respect that. But don't be the casual fan who's going to argue with me. Arguing with me or with Jay or any of my contemporaries, even Quinn, even those guys, if you're a casual fan, you're not going to win the argument because your understanding of Dragon Ball is limited, and that's fine. Listen, I love The Simpsons. My knowledge about the first 10 seasons is where it ends. After season 10, The Simpsons took a nosedive, in my opinion. I can tell you all kinds of quotes from the first 10, maybe even first 12 seasons. After that, the series is shit, in my opinion. It's shit. Am I going to say I'm a hardcore Simpsons fan? No. I love the first 10 seasons. It's like my second favorite cartoon behind Dragon Ball. Doesn't mean that I'm a know-it-all. But the first 10 seasons, I understand. Again, same thing with Dragon Ball. So people are sitting there saying, Goku threw the fight. When if you understood Dragon Ball, if you understood Goku, you would know that he would never do that. And I said it in my video, and it was irritating. I did a video with Dino. I said it in my video, and people still couldn't accept it. Like, people still have issues understanding that. Like,
I think it comes from over-analyzing too. People see Goku wince in pain and they just assume that he's winking because he didn't close both eyes.
That's a wince, not a wink. But see,
yeah,
I said that
wincing
in the video, and people are like, "Oh, didn't you see the episode? He winked."
Yeah, yeah, and
Did
I
you
mean,
watch the video, retard?
I've had people, and I'm not going to go too off topic, but I've had people say to me, "Oh, it's the egg Champa gave him."
3
Well,
years ago.
that's impossible because Goku ate that egg 3 years ago. He's been in the room in Spirit of Time training with Vegeta for 3 years. On top of that,
Critical
when Go
thinking, guys. Critical
when
thinking.
well, also on top of that, when Goku ate the egg, the idea for the actual Universal tournament, Team Universe 6 versus Universe 7, that tournament hadn't even been thought up by Champa or
It
Beerus.
was just food that Champa gave him, bro. That's all it
They
was.
were they were exchanging delicacies or foods between universes. This is like a tradition that the gods seem to do. It seems to be what Beerus and Champa do.
That's
The
right.
tournament was conceived after that, so it's impossible for the egg to be what happened to Goku. I'm telling you now, even though I haven't seen
No, it's
episode
impossible.
34.
You know
It is
why?
actually impossible.
It's impossible. You know why? Because you have this thing called the brain, critical thinking. That's and that's it. And that's kind of the whole thing here is that but here's the thing though. If the explanation they give us for the Frost thing, if that's not a good explanation, we have a right as fans of the series to criticize it. We do have a right.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, but I think we should give Toei an opportunity to explain. Like, for example, the Goku using the gold hair. We might not get that explanation until Vegeta fights because they could do a thing where, and this is the problem with a weekly show. Like you said, this is the first time we're watching this shit weekly for the first time. Vegeta could hop in there, fight Kabe or whoever, go blue hair, and then Kabe could say, wait a minute, I just saw your friend use the gold hair, and Vegeta could be like, yeah, well, that's our other transformation. This is the one I'm going to use to fight you because unlike Kakaroto, I'm not, like he always says, I'm not as a fool like he is. I'm going to go all out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's total Vegeta. And again, how do I know it's total Vegeta? Because I am a student of the fucking game. I've always get comments, people asking me, how do you know so much about Dragon Ball, blah, 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 because I'm a student of the fucking game. I've seen the series in 3 fucking languages multiple times. I understand these characters. I understand Goku would never, ever drop a fight. Goku's entire purpose in life is to fight. That's what he does.
Yeah.
He wants to fight Frost, Vegeta, Hito. He wants to fight them all. Why would he throw a fight? Oh, well, because Frost, he wants to be nice. He's a nice guy. He wants to do it to Frost. No, Goku's not that nice of a guy. Goku's very selfish.
Goku's very selfish and will often put his friends in danger to win a fight. That's just the way it is.
And part of the problem with that is people who grew up on the dub, which made him even more of a benevolent hero than he actually is because of the ally to good, nightmare to you situation, which still bugs me because Goku is not a hero for good. Goku fights for himself and for his friends. He doesn't know Frost. Another example is the Yam thing during the tournament. Yam told us that he entered the tournament because he needed to get water to save his village because it was starving. Why didn't Goku throw that fight? Because Goku said, let me win the tournament and then we'll worry about that later, which is exactly what he did to Frost. But the problem is that people have no humility. You know what I mean? And it's cool to be critical of even us, but show some fucking humility. You know what I mean? And some respect is the way I see it.
Yeah. Some of the criticisms, basically the point we're trying to make is some of the criticisms people make of Super is okay, or are okay, I should say, but a lot of them are just nitpicking, or they don't understand the origins of the Dragon Ball story. And let me tell you guys something. I grew up a dub fan of the series. I got into Dragon Ball through the US Funimation dub, and the original one with the Bruce Faulkner music. And watching it in Japanese, and I'm being 100% truthful with everyone, watching it in Japanese is such an enlightening experience. It's one of the best things you can do to expand your horizons and your knowledge as a Dragon Ball fan. It's not for the faint of heart, or if you're a casual fan of the series. If you're a casual fan of the series, then you will want an English dub of Super, and you'll want to watch Super in English, and you don't care about any of the stuff in Japanese. That's fine. But the point we're trying to make is the hardcore fans that love the series that much that they're willing to watch it again in Japanese and learn and expand their horizons even more. We have analyzed the characters in their original form before they were altered by another culture, because Americans' view on Goku and even Vegeta are very, very different from Japan's view on those characters, the original vision of those characters. Toei has an understanding of what Toriyama's original vision was in the manga because they worked with Toriyama in the day when they were creating the anime series. Funimation never had that luxury, so it's a completely different story there. So, watching it in Japanese is one of the best things you can do, and it really helps you understand Super a lot more by extension because you have this relationship with the characters. Geek Denny and I have the relationship with these Japanese voice actors since Dragon Ball Z, GT. We've watched like all the series prior to Super in Japanese. So when we see these sorts of things come up in Super, there's certain things you do criticize, like lazy storytelling, but there's certain things that you can't criticize. Well, you can't say. You can't say Goku threw this fight because he didn't throw the fight. He was even in the next episode preview. In the next episode preview, he says, "What did Frost do to me? Like, what was that technique Frost used on me?" So there's your proof right there that it was Frost. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, and by the time most people hear this, it's probably gonna already be over with. But most people, I'm sure some will hear it, early enough that it's still fresh to them. But the point is the whole thing about criticizing the series. Like I said, I want to know everybody's comments down below about this topic. Do you think that people overly criticize or don't criticize enough? Because to me, bro, like, I feel like if I criticize an episode and nitpick it, I get called a bitch, and over the internet, of course, because keyboard warriors. I'm bitching, and why are you bitching because Dragon Ball's back? It's like I have an entire channel dedicated. I spent more money on Dragon Ball than some people have made in an entire year. All right, real talk, and it's like people will sit there and somehow think that I'm hating on the series, that I'm criticizing. Like, are you stupid? Like, are you dumb? This is a fucking. I don't want to be a Dragon Ball channel, but 90% of my content is fucking Dragon Ball. What the fuck do you think? I fucking studied this shit like a damn fucking English paper in the university, bro. Like, and people are gonna sit there and have the balls to say, well, you're overly criticizing. Of course I can, because I fucking can. And I have. And guess what? Here's the reality. Like, everybody is equal. Like, there's no person that I feel, in my opinion, there is no human being that is better than another. I think that's a very bad mentality to have. But there are people who are more knowledgeable than others. In certain instances, in certain cases, their opinion should be heard more. Their voice should be a little bit louder. If I have a stomach ache, who do I trust? A certified PhD or a construction worker? It's common fucking sense. So to me, I don't like it when I criticize an episode and somebody says, "Oh, you're too critical," and then sometimes people will bitch about just things that I don't care about, like okay, the animation was a little bit wonky. I said that in my review. It's a little bit wonky. Oh man, the shit looks like trash. All right, fine, it's your opinion, but the point is, I want to get everybody's thoughts down below in the comments.
And I'll just add my final thoughts on the animation.
Yeah.
Animation for me, I'm starting to come to terms with it in a different aspect. I've watched the series a couple of times now, Battle of Gods and Resurrection of F-Arcs. There is still a lot of good animation to be had. It's just not for the entire duration of episodes, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately because it would be nice if the animation was consistent. But here's the thing people have to understand. When I go back and watch Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z in Japanese, the animation has never been perfect and it's never been spot on. And people have to stop, and you've probably heard other YouTubers saying this, you have to stop freezing frames and putting non-key frames frozen on Twitter or social media and saying, "Oh, look at this animation," because that's not, you're not doing the show justice doing that. You could go into almost any anime and pick out still frames where things look bad. Key frames are a bit different. Key frames should look decent and respectful. But if it's not, and you're just going to take a still shot of it, that's not really doing the show justice, and you're really only being a bit of a dick. One thing I will say as well is the animation isn't taking away from the enjoyment of the series for me anymore, because I'm starting to look at it, and I will say this, much like when I play a video game, the graphics don't make everything in the fucking story being told. The story being told is the most important thing, and my biggest criticism of Super is not so much the animation at times, it is when things don't get explained properly, because that creates problems in the community and it creates confusion amongst us who are trying to create content for people to watch. So that's my biggest criticism of Super, is not the animation, because you can have subpar animation or shitty animation and still have a fantastic story. And I think story is more important than animation, in my opinion.
I agree with you, and that's kind of my final thoughts, is that Dragon Ball is not... You can't expect it to look like Full Metal Alchemist. You can't expect it to look like freaking One Punch Man or Fooly Cooley or any other show. Dragon Ball was never about animation. I mean, it really wasn't, okay? I understand that people want the animation to be top quality. We all do, but that's not really what it's about.
And if people would like an answer and say, well, why isn't it top quality? That's because just look at the list of Toei animations over the past years, ever since Dragon Ball in the like mid-'80s. Toei has never been all about that animation. It's that animation's got to be top notch. They're not, they're not some of these other studios like Funhouse and Viz. Some of these other companies. You know what I mean? Like they're not those companies. You know,
Yeah.
who is it that one does One Punch Man? Funhouse or something? I'm pretty sure it is.
No, that's Madhouse.
Studio Madhouse, yeah. So that's
Studio
what I meant to
Madhouse.
say. Studio Madhouse. So I'm sorry, everyone's probably laughing at me, going, "What's this dickhead talking about
Nah,
Funhouse?"
you haven't seen it yet, but you will.
Yeah,
See
I haven't seen it. Yeah, I will watch it, but that's what I mean. Like, you can't compare Toei to those because they're completely different companies, and Toei's standards have always probably been around this level, from what I can tell.
Yeah. All right. Well, so let us know your thoughts below. Do you think that as fans we're too critical or not critical enough? I mean, I just think that it is just, if you're gonna criticize it, make sure you know what the fuck you're talking about. That's number one. Don't criticize. Don't blame Toriyama for everything. I'm so sick of people blaming Toriyama. Half the damn bitches, they'll blame Toriyama for everything, and then they won't blame him enough. Like they'll say, well, Toriyama's a guy. Like Toriyama, like Xeon said, Toriyama has to take a shit on your chest for you to criticize him, but then other people only criticize him. Like, no, find a balance and understand this Dragon Ball show and manga and all this shit. Maybe not the manga, but the show is a group of people doing it, not just one guy. So check out Super Jayain. Of course, subscribe if you haven't to myself. I'm sure most of you have. And subscribe to Super Jayain. Thank you for watching the video, and we'll catch you guys later.
See ya.